If you're using Power BI or Power Pivot to build a report by month, by year, then you need a date table. End of story. There's ways around it, but don't avoid it. It's easy to add a date table. I'll show you how. I'll show you why you should, and I'll show you some of the little tricks that you need to know about. Let's go. So if you don't have a date table and you've left a certain setting on, and I'll show you that setting in a second, then when you bring data into your Power BI report or Power Pivot, you will have a little date field in here with a little hierarchy. So if I want to see sales by, I don't know, let's go to the date hierarchy, by order, or by due date, year and month, I'll just drill down into here. Okay, that's great. However, you've got the long month name. What if I want a short month name? You're stuck. What if I want to slice and dice by order date and due date in the same table? You're stuck. Let's have a look what happens if you publish this report and you want to connect to it with Analyze in Excel. So here's my connected Excel report. Just bring this pivot table list over here. You will notice that the hierarchies have gone. And if I want to do some analysis of sales by order date, for example, then there's no way of doing month and year. You're stuck. So the hierarchies are annoying. They actually take up a lot of memory, potentially, in your Power BI file, because what happens is that for each date field you have in your data, and here I have order, due date, and shipping date, Power BI automatically generates this invisible calendar with this hierarchy of year, month, and quarter in. If your financial year is different to the calendar year, you can't use these. They're just not good. Okay, they're there for simple, quick reports when people don't know about calendar tables or date tables. You really do need one, and it's so simple. So first things first, let's turn off this auto date time hierarchy. So you go to File, Options and Settings, Options, and then in the middle of your Options screen, you will see a little checkbox called Auto Date Time. Turn that off and click OK. And it will only impact new files. Notice I've still got the hierarchy in this old file. So what I'm going to do is start a brand new file, re-import this data, and show you what it looks like. So here we are. We've got our sales data reloaded. This time I've turned off that auto date time feature, and those hierarchies are no longer there. But then you're saying, okay, well, I want to analyze sales by month. What do I do? I'm stuck. This is where a calendar table comes in. So I'm just going to go over to another report where I've built a calendar table in Power Query. You can also build a calendar table using DAX. My preferred method is Power Query. I find it more flexible. I can copy and paste it into Excel. I can copy and paste it into other Power BI reports. It's a personal preference, but a DAX calendar can work as well. So here we go. I'm just going to open up an empty file with a pre-built calendar. Here's my calendar, pre-built for me. I've even got a couple of little folders in here with financial year and relative periods. So days ago, months ago, which can be really useful for when you're doing sort of moving totals or relative comparisons this month versus 2 months ago. Let's take a look, and let's just copy it across to start with, hook it up, and then I'll explain how you edit this calendar. So I'm going to go into Power Query, and it's so simple. You just right-click, copy this calendar. You can then close this window. You can even close this file down completely. That calendar is in the clipboard in memory now. So I'm into my report. I say Transform Data. I come into the same left-hand panel here and paste. Okay. And my calendar is now built. Easy. The one thing I need to make sure is that my start date and end date cover the period of my data. So in this scenario, my start date is going to be the 1st of January 2001, okay, because my data is actually back to 2001. And my end date, so I've put in this little years in the future. So if you want this to be end 1 year in the future, 2 years in the future, if you're doing 3-year forecasting, then you put whatever years in the future you want this to be. Then the end date is dynamic. It's actually based on this little formula. Okay, so this M code takes today's date and then runs it out to the end of this year if you've left it at 0 for years in future. If you put 1 year in the future, it'll go to the end of next year. If you put a 2 for years in the future, it'll run to the end of the year after. So I've made this dynamic. The today option I've just put in here, which is again another formula, another M code formula. It's basically today. That's the function for getting today's date. I'll come back into here in 1 second, but let's just close and load this and make sure it's all hooked up properly. So once we load it, we have our calendar table. Here we go. And we just go to our data model and we make sure that we hook up our key field first. So what I mean by that is the most common one you're going to report on. So let's say order date is the most common one we're going to report on. So I'm going to hook that up to my date. But if I might be doing some analysis based on shipping date and due date, I may as well connect those up at the same time. Okay. Remember only to bring in columns of data that you are actually going to use in your report. If you're not going to use these columns in your report, get rid of them. Okay. Right. So by default, the solid line is to order date. So before you actually build any visuals, click on the word month, go to sort by and pick month number for sort. That is a column where there's a 1 against January, a 2 against February, and so on. If you want to sort by financial year, so you want maybe to start in July and run through to June, then there's another little technique I'll show you in a second. So month number for sort, done. Same thing for day. I want my day of the week. You know, if I just bring in day, it'll actually end up being sorted alphabetically, which isn't great. Okay, so what I do is I click on the word day over here, go to my sort by, and there's day of week for sort. This has got a 1 against Monday, a 2 against Tuesday, and again I'll show you how you can tweak that if you don't want Monday to be the first day of the week. There we go, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's just check that the months have worked as well. Drop them in here, Jan, Feb, March. And if you do want your months to sort by financial month number, say July through to June, if that's your financial year, you can come to the month, sort by, and pick financial month number for sort. And I can show you a quick trick about how you change that, sort of what your year end is back in Power Query. So let's just give that a go. Beautiful. Okay, let me sort that back by month number for sort. Okay, so if we come back in here now and we say, right, give me the sales by year, by month, and now I drill down, I actually get a proper breakdown. And notice if I actually go to here and turn the concatenated labels off, it's actually the short month that I'm using rather than the long month description. You've got full control because it's Power Query. You can cut the columns to whatever length you want them to be. And you can add your own quarters and you can add all sorts of functionality in here. Then you can also just group these together in a little folder if you want to, using the modeling view. So under calendar, maybe I want my financial years and quarters all in the little FY folder. Okay, perfect. Right, so let's jump back into Power Query and take a quick look at what you sort of tweak. So under the transform data, we're in the calendar. So these things are the key at the top, okay? The today, which is automatically generated, We can potentially overwrite that, but there's generally not a need. The start date, you just type it in. Years in the future, you just type it in. End date, okay, it's at some point in the future. But what if we want to hard code this in? Well, let's just go and have a look at the advanced editor. So here we go. Today, here's the formula, start date. Now what you can do is you could say, right, I don't want this anymore. So you code out those two end date parts and you actually code this back in. So this end date is now a hard-coded date. And if I go back here, and scroll up the top, go to end date, you could just actually hard code in whatever end date you wanted for your calendar. And then moving further down, you've got month number for end of financial year. So a 6 is a June and so on. So if I go back here and just click on month number, there's a 6. If I want my year end to be August, I could type an 8. Everything else just gets generated by the code. The first day of the week is day.monday. You can change that to whatever you want. And again, the code just does the rest for you. Essentially, the first and most important point is this. It takes your start date, which was set up here, the number from that, turns the date into a number, takes the number from the end date, and the curly brackets just generates this list. Essentially, I then just click this to table button that converts it to a table. So this is our list of dates. We name the column, we change the type, so it's a list of dates. And then a lot of the next steps are just doing this, add column, date, year, okay, add the month, then take the first 3 letters of the month, take the quarter, the day of the week. So it's basically adding all these steps. Then I've done some extra little calculations here to work out the days since today. So days ago, months ago, and so on. And they're really useful for making some of your DAX formulas simpler later on. And then I've added a little section here that calculates the financial year. Okay, what's the financial month number? Based on that input we put right at the top. Okay, based on this number 6, it says what financial number it is. So in this case, July becomes 1, August becomes 2, and the whole purpose for that is to sort your months so they display in the correct order. So there we go. There's a little bit more to it. Feel free to download this file and have a look through the advanced editor. Any questions, just drop them in the comments. But we're good. We have got a proper calendar. Okay. So let me just show you what happens when we then publish this. We can slice and dice it in any way, but it also then works in Excel. So back into my file, and I've loaded the calendar into this other file that I had before, the one with the hierarchies, and I've hooked it up, okay, the same way I did the other file. And you'll notice that the hierarchies have now disappeared. There's actually a hierarchy in my calendar now, which is really annoying. One way to get rid of that, and also a couple of other benefits of doing this, is to mark your calendar as a date table. So if I right click and mark as date table, you pick your date column from your calendar. Notice this warning. It says that anything that was associated with the built-in data tables, with the built-in date tables, they'll break. So if you are retrospectively adding this calendar back in, you will need to recreate your fields that you've dropped into your visuals from your calendar now, rather than the built-in hierarchies. So I'm going to go OK. And again, you can build your chart out by day of the week if you wanted to. It is not sorted by day, so you can see the descending order. So I go to day, sort by, you can see day is at the top with the grey on it. I come down and I say day of week for sort. Now nothing happens in this visual, it's a bit annoying. You need to make sure you sort your calendar before building any visuals. Otherwise there's 2 clicks. You've now got to go sort by, and you sort by day. And then it always sorts it back to front. So you now go sort ascending. That does your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, another reason, a really important reason for marking your calendar as a date table is if you don't actually have a date field connecting your date with your date. And when I say date with your date from your calendar with date from your sales table. If you've got a date key, like 2021-08-01, then for stuff like time intelligence functions and stuff like that, you really need to mark it as a date table so that it uses it properly. So you may as well just get in the habit of marking your calendar as a date table. Note, I call mine calendar. Lots of people call theirs table date. But when I'm writing DAX formulas, something about it. I don't like writing date bracket date when I'm referring to that column. Having a column and a table with the same name, I just don't like it. So I call it calendar and date. Whenever you are writing a DAX formula though, so if I go new measure and I write a function like total year to date, which you can only do if you have a calendar table. So if I say sales YTD, and let me zoom in here with control and mouse wheel, equals total YTD. Okay, so I want my sales dollar. And see, it asks for dates. You need a calendar table. And if it's not a proper date column connected to a date column, then this doesn't work unless you've marked it as a date table as well. Okay, so you always put in your calendar date in here. Notice the little quotes around the word calendar. That's because calendar is actually a function in DAX as well. There's actually a function called calendar, so it's actually differentiating it from that. And that would be it for your total year to date, unless you have finish not on the 31st of December. If you want your year to start for your calculation, if you want your year to start from the 1st of July, for example, then you just put 30/06. That's your year end. Okay. For whatever reason, you put your year end, not your year start. Okay, so I hope that helps explain calendar tables, and you see how easy it is to copy and paste and change the start and end date. Let's just see this in action in Excel. So here I am back in the Excel file that is connected to the data set. I republished the file, I've refreshed this Excel file, and now here's the calendar showing up. And I can easily now do, I don't know, years in the rows, and then maybe day of week in the column. So day into my columns. And you notice my days are sorted because I sorted them up in the data set in Power BI. So everything just works better with calendars. So please use a calendar. Look, I can even copy and paste a calendar into an Excel Power Query. So I can happily use it in Excel or Power BI. Let me show you that just to finish off. So I'm simply in my file with a calendar in it. I go transform data to open up Power Query, right click copy. Okay, then I just fire up Excel. I'm just going to go straight into the Power Query window. Data, get data, launch Power Query. I can then right click, paste this. So this is Excel Power Query. And again, I can now go close and load to, and I could load this straight into the data model. Beautiful. So calendar tables, built-in Power Query, they're my recommendation. I'll make the calendar available, have a play around with it, download it for free, reuse it, put it in a template file. Start off with that calendar every time you start a new project with it pre-sorted, ready to go. So I hope you find that useful. Please share this with people you might think might find it interesting. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date, and I will catch you later.